Welcome to Champion Minded, the podcast for those who aim for excellence, not only in the sports arena, but in life. My name is Allistair, author, speaker, mindset and performance coach, and my goal is to help you unleash your unlimited potential and provide you with the tools to achieve greatness. Are you ready to become champion minded? Then let's do this. Hey everyone, welcome to the Champion Minded podcast, or welcome back to it. I'm Allistair McCaw. In this episode of What It Takes, I'm going to be talking to Steph Horton. But before we get into this episode with Steph, I just want to say a massive thank you to all of you who have taken the time to leave a rating or review on iTunes. Thanks so much to Jason Harnett, who says, "Thanks so much, Allistair, for helping us transform our culture and professionalism with the younger players in the USTA high-performance wheelchair tennis team." Coach Betts says, "Always outstanding content. Truly appreciate Allistair's humility, approach, and commitment to helping us develop and grow." Todd Nassif writes, "We read a chapter a day at practice of Champion Minded, motivating and inspirational book and podcast we would highly recommend to anyone who wants to improve both on and off the field." Thank you, Todd. And then one more comes from Herman. "Excellent source of motivation and wisdom of what it takes to be champion-minded, both in our daily lives and in our profession. Great compliment for Allistair's recent book, Champion-Minded, and we look forward to hearing the upcoming episodes." Thanks so much to Herman for leaving that review, and to every single one of you who've taken the time to do so. But let's get into this episode with Steph Horton. Steph is an English professional footballer who plays and captains both Manchester City and the England national team. At club level, she started at Sunderland before moving to Leeds, Arsenal Ladies, and in 2014 signed for Manchester City. In fact, just after we had this interview, she had just passed 200 appearances for her club, Manchester City. She made her debut for the England national team in 2007. In 2014, she was made the captain of the national team. She's also competed in the Olympics and no less than 2 World Cups. Now, I've followed Steph's career for some time. I also follow her on Twitter. And I can tell you that Steph is the ultimate professional. She is 100% champion-minded. And in this podcast, we get into the beginning part of her career, how she got involved in football, influences on her career, her work ethic, also her mindset in competition. I also asked her a few questions of what it was like to work under managers and coaches such as Hope Powell, Mark Sampson, and Phil Neville. And just a shout out to Phil for helping me get in touch with Steph. Also in the podcast, we talk about her values and standards. I asked her, would she describe herself as a perfectionist? We also get into leadership because obviously she has captained both the national teams and her club, Manchester City. I also asked her how she would describe her leadership style, the difficult things about being a captain. Also, we get into team culture. Also have a few fun questions for her at the end. Quick fire questions, which I know you guys will enjoy as well. So without further ado, this is Steph Horton. Hey Steph, welcome to the Champion Minded podcast.
Thank you for having us.
First of all, congratulations on your 200th cap or your 200th appearance for Manchester City on the past weekend.
Thank you. I mean, I don't know whether that says that I'm old or the fact that I play quite a lot. So yeah, really happy to have made 200 appearances for an unbelievable club.
Yeah, awesome achievement. We're going to go into that a little bit later in the conversation. But first of all, I'm going to start with a question that I usually ask my guests at the end of the show. And the reason why I'm doing it is because either I run out of time or I just forget. So bad podcast host. So I'm going to ask you this. When all is said and done, how would you like to be remembered once your career is over? Talk about starting at the very end here, okay?
Right, okay. I think I'd like to be known as someone that's give everything every single day for no matter what team, for my teammates, for the clubs that I've been at and for my country, and someone that's probably set the standards and raised the bar on and off the pitch by leading by example and my professionalism every single day.
If there's one regret that you don't want at the end of your career, what would it be?
I think not giving it my all. I think I'd hate to know that I've went into a training week or a game and just kind of not give it everything. I think for me, that's what I pride myself on. I've always done that since I've been younger, is to, no matter whether it's a recovery day, whether it's a strength session, whether it's a running session, I like to leave everything out there and know that I've given my utmost everything just to improve myself as a player. But everything I do is for the team. So one regret would be if I ever just kind of tossed off a session or just didn't do what I'm supposed to do and lack professionalism. So I don't think I've had any of them yet, but yeah, that would be one regret if that ever happened.
Mm. Okay, so let's go back to where it all started for you. Let's go back to a very young Steph, starting off in the game of football. Tell us how that started for you.
Yeah, well, my interest in football came from my dad, basically, and I think it was around about, I was around about 4 or 5 years old when I really started kicking the ball properly. And I come from the northeast of England, which is a football hotbed. There's a lot of teams up there, and everybody loves their football. It's so competitive, and my family is very much football oriented. Everybody loves the sport, and I think there was only ever going to be football that I was going to be interested in. And from then on, obviously, used to go to, obviously played at primary school. I went to a lot of soccer camps in the holidays when you were off school, and that's when I got scouted. I went to a Sunderland Easter soccer school, and one of the coaches came up and was like, "Do you fancy trying for the girls' team?" And obviously back then there wasn't that many girls' teams, but when the team that you support kind of come up to you and go, "Do you want to try out?" I'm like, "Yeah, let's do it." Like, so excited. My mum and dad were buzzing, my brother was buzzing. So from then I just had this love of football and this will to win. And of course, over the years, the game in this country has grown massively.
It must have been difficult for you back then because obviously women's soccer or football, we say soccer here, but isn't what it is like it is now, obviously. So starting off as a girl, you must have had to have played with boys' teams because there maybe wasn't enough girls at that time?
Yeah, my first team was my primary school team, and I think I was the only girl that was a part of that team. And I think for me, looking back now, that was the best thing for me, was to play football with the lads, because it made us so competitive. It made us even have a bigger will to win, because I think they always judged us because I was a girl, I wasn't that good. But actually it was kind of like, right, okay, I'm going to prove you wrong, that even though I love the game and even though I'm a girl, I can still be as good as you. So for me, I'm forever grateful to be a part of that primary school team and having the opportunity to kind of go and be a part of something that probably was frowned upon back then. But at the same time, it was an opportunity for me to kind of maybe bridge that gap and show that girls can be a part of a football team, whether that's a mixed team or, well, now girls have their own teams. So for me, I'd loved every single minute of whether it was on break time, running to the yard to go and play a five-a-side, or within them school games, playing against other schools, because ultimately, if you had that little bit of talent and you wanted to win, the lads then were like, "Yeah, I definitely want you on my team." So yeah, it was an interesting journey, but one that I'd never ever change.
Yeah. Would you say that was one of your early motivators to obviously get better, was to play against the boys and be, accepted, so to say, like be that first or second choice when they were choosing teams, like in school, for example?
Yeah, I think everybody hates that moment when you're getting picked on a team. You're like, "Oh, I don't want to get picked last." And I was like, a little bit like that. I was like, for me, I just want to be picked and I want to play, and I want to play every single game that I can. So yeah, the motivation was definitely there. There's obviously the odd comment of like, "Oh, well, she shouldn't be playing football. She doesn't deserve to be playing on this team." But actually, the more that we played and the more that I was doing okay, the more the lads were like, "Yeah, we want to pick Steph first or second or whatever it might be." So it kind of changed over the months that I was playing. But I think that was down to probably the boys accepting that I was actually all right at football.
Yeah, they say if you can't beat them, join them, right? So I'd rather have you on our team. It's funny, I had this running group back in Sarasota, which is just on the other side of Florida. And the fastest person in the group was a girl. And she had this really cool shirt that said on the back, "Yeah, I run like a girl."
Yeah.
And we had to look at that because she would be in the front, of course, and it just really, really shut a few people up, which was pretty cool as well.
Yeah,
So,
definitely.
moving on, what was the first football game that you can remember?
Yeah, it was my first football game I can remember playing in was for my school team, so my primary school, and it was the first time I played 11-a-side football. And I can remember it was at our school against one of the local schools, which was like 5-10 minutes away. And I think because of numbers, I actually got myself a start in the team. And I can always remember I was starting ahead of one of my lad mates, and he was one of my best friends as well. And I knew he wasn't happy, and I knew that his parents wasn't happy because obviously my mum and dad were on the sidelines. They listened to their comments, and I always remember this game because I can just remember the motivation was to like, right, okay, I'm going to actually have the best game ever. And I always remember doing a Cruyff turn and scoring a goal. So I think them moments are really special. And obviously it's hard to remember exactly the moment, but I always remember that Cruyff turn. I always remember that goal.
Yeah. It's the one where he's up at the top left corner. He's wearing the number 14. He's on orange, obviously, which is Cruyff. But I can remember it as well. So so you perfected that, Steph. I'm taking.
Well, I don't do that much in my position now, but in training now and again.
Yeah, but what was fun, I was actually obviously doing my research on you as well. And you started as a striker, went back to midfield, now defense. So would the next move maybe be goalkeeper?
You wouldn't want to be putting me in goal, that's a certain fact.
Who were the players that you looked up to when you were a kid?
I think obviously because the time that I was getting interested in football, there wasn't in terms of a lot more coverage of female football. So for me, a lot of my heroes were male footballers, and obviously I support Sunderland, so my hero was always Kevin Phillips, who was a striker. And the obvious ones are probably David Beckham and Steven Gerrard. I think them for England football and obviously the Premier League, they were the standout players for me for a lot of reasons, but mainly because of their passing ability, the technical ability that I just love watching them play, and the fact that they were both captain of their clubs and obviously the country in the end. That was another reason that I really admired how they played and how they led, and just obviously the way that they could grip a game and take control themselves. So yeah, I'd have to say them three as my heroes, really.
Now, I mean, just mentioning Sunderland, I actually just watched the Sunderland Until We Die documentary on Netflix a few weeks back.
Yeah.
Yeah, what a story. Were you a Sunderland supporter when you were younger?
Yeah, a massive one. So every game that I could go to, I'd always go. I was actually a ball girl at a few of the games, just through, obviously, I think I was ball girl at Sunderland v Manchester United, and I can always remember me and my best friend, and I was like, look, we need to go in the corners because David Beckham takes the corners, so we used to try and grab a corner each. Had all the home kits and away kits with Phillips on the back, so yeah, mad Sunderland support. Obviously still follow them now, still support them now. I mean, obviously the Sunderland Till I Die Netflix is not a good thing for a Sunderland supporter. It shows how much the club's been through, but ultimately, hopefully, it's we're on the way up now. I hope so anyway.
Yeah. At what age did you know that football was going to become a career for you?
I think potentially when I was around about 16, 17, I think. Obviously, I'd been through the age groups at England. I was playing under 19s, and I obviously got my first call up as a 17-year-old to go and be a part of the England first team. And at that time, there was the introduction of central contracts from the FA, which allowed players to train full time and not worry about working as well as training. And I think that was the moment when I was like, when I got offered one of them, I was like, right, okay, I can actually really focus on my football now. Obviously, at the time, I was at university. I was studying sports science, but I was going to be there for 3 years, and the game was only getting bigger and better. So for me, I was like, okay, I need to use this opportunity as much as I can to kind of improve myself as an individual, but also do the things that England want us to do. And fortunately enough, it kind of worked out the way that I was thinking.
Now, I actually want to go back to that comment I made a few minutes ago about the fact that you played up front, midfield, and defense. Now, do you believe that because you were able to play all those positions through your development, that's helped you to be the player you are today, to understand, every position on the field, so to say, but that it's important. Here's where I'm going with this: that it's important for a child developing that they play all positions when they're younger, not just get stuck into a position when they're 8 years old, for example.
Yeah, I think for me personally, it's been massive for my career. I think not only the technical skills, but also the understanding of the game and what each role kind of requires. And obviously, at the time, it's quite frustrating that you get moved position to position because ultimately you want to play. But being versatile gets you in squads, and your learning and your awareness of what goes on in the game is probably at a higher level than most people because of that experience of different roles. And I speak to a few of the girls that are on my team, and one in particular kind of gets moved from being a striker to a midfielder, potentially fills in a fullback. And I'm like, look, mate, like, this is going to be good for you in the future. I says, you're only 22. I says, learn every single day. And for me as a centre-half now, potentially playing as a forward, I understand what kind of movements they're going to make. So for me, reading the game, it becomes a little bit more easier. And I'm not saying I was the perfect striker, but you kind of know the movements that they want to do or what they want to try and do to centre-half because you've experienced that. And the same as midfield, I understand my pass appreciation has to be so good because midfielders want to get on the half turn, they want to control the game. So for me at the time, it was frustrating, but at the same time, it got me in a lot of squads in terms of in big tournaments, whether that's World Cups, Olympics, European Championships. And now I'm able to say that I'm a regular starter for both my club and my country, and my understanding of the game is the best it's ever been.
Well, I would say you're the perfect team player because you're able to fulfill any role if it happens. For example, we just look at Jordan Henderson, who obviously I believe he was criticized in the beginning, of course, but a massive part of his strengths are his leadership qualities, which a lot of people undermine. They just look at the player, the skills, but leadership is massive. And then we look at James Milner, for example, who obviously came from Man City to Liverpool. I believe, in my opinion, that if he wasn't as versatile a player, he would not probably be in the squad. And of course, his work ethic is massive, which you're a big one on work ethic as well. But that's what's put him in that position at the age of, I think, what is he now, 35, that he's just signed another contract. But his versatility, that he can play defense, he can play midfield.
Yeah, and every team needs them sort of players. I think you talk about leadership, it's about being selfless and putting the team first. And you speak about Jordan Henderson and James Milner, and that pretty much sums them up. I think obviously you say about Jordan, he's played centre-half most of the season before he's been injured. And for me, that just typifies the person that he is. And ultimately, it just shows how good of a footballer he is as well, to be able to kind of go into a different position and play the role that he has. And the same as James, the influences that they have, not just in terms of on the pitch, it's away from the pitch as well, and that kind of shows how successful they have been.
Yeah, well, I must admit, I'm a massive James Milner fan. Like I said, his leadership qualities, he's just got ice running through his veins. I don't know if you remember that one game where he came on and he basically took a penalty as he came on. It was a crucial penalty. I can't remember who it was against, but I think it was for a draw or a win. But he's just a phenomenal leader. When they were training here, I think last season was it, or was it the season before, up in Boston, the hardest working guy in practice for sure.
Yeah, I mean, funny you should say that. We've both got the same agent, so I know James quite well and we speak regularly, but whatever you've said there, I mean, I don't know anybody that works as hard as him. I think for the age that he's at and the amount of games that he's played in this league, and he could go on until he's 40 if he wanted to, just because he looks after himself so well. So, yeah, I totally agree.
So can we call James Milner the male version of Steph Houghton?
Yeah, we'll say that. I'll make sure I message him and tell him that as well.
All right. What would you say has been the best advice or feedback you've received up until now in your career?
I think for me, the biggest thing that I've learned, and that probably was when I got given the captaincy for England and Man City, was I can only control what I can control as a person. And I think it only took us until probably 3 years ago when I'm like, that is so true, because the type of person that I am, not just within football, but away from football, I obviously care a lot about people and making sure that people are okay. And I think when you're in an environment such as an England camp, or there's lots of change going on, I think you can get yourself dragged into stuff that you don't really necessarily need to get dragged into. And ultimately, my first 6 months of my captaincy, which I'm sure we'll probably speak about anyway, was a lot of energy I wasted on worrying what other people thought of me, what people thought of what I was doing as a person and as a captain and how I was playing. Well, actually, the only person that I really affected was me. So for me, it was all about just kind of stripping everything back to the basics and going, ultimately, what am I as a footballer, and what do I want people to look at me and go, oh, Steph is this. And that was my professionalism and my hard work. And no matter what I did, no matter whether I wore a captain's armband, was to always control them two things and make sure that you don't get really worried about what other people are trying to think of you, because ultimately football is full of opinions. Some people might rate you, some people might not. People might think you're a good captain, might not be a good captain for them. So it was just trying to, I think I was young enough to kind of go through that, and I've came out of it stronger as a person and stronger as a leader, definitely.
Would you say that was a hurdle you had to overcome? That being liked. Of course, everybody wants to be liked; they want to be appreciated. But was that something that you had to overcome? Because you mentioned that you like to please people. You like to put yourself obviously in a good position to serve them, so to say, which is a leader.
Yeah, I think even now I'm not going to say that I'm perfect at it, because ultimately that's the nature that I am. I like to come into work, and I like to go into football and everybody be happy and create an unbelievable environment where it's positive and everybody's excited to work. But the reality is some days it's not like that, and we can always try to push to be the perfect environment, but ultimately there's 30, 40 people within a football environment where things change quite a lot, or something happens, or we have injuries, or somebody's missing for a game. So I think I had to be realistic, but I think it took a lot of hard work to get to the point where I'm at now, where you kind of realizing what's more important than something else. And I feel as I've definitely improved a lot, talking to people around us, whether it's my teammates, the people that I trust, and obviously the psychologists that we have both at England and Man City as well.
Awesome. Now, you began your playing career at Sunderland Ladies, as you mentioned, as in the youth. You then moved to Leeds, Arsenal, and obviously you joined Manchester City in 2014, where, as we just mentioned, you surpassed 200 appearances, which is an incredible achievement. But probably one of your proudest moments was putting on the England jersey, of course. Tell us how that experience was for you.
It was surreal, I think. Ultimately, the squad that England had back then was ridiculous, and obviously at the time football in this country was getting even bigger. We just had the Euros in 2005, which is an unbelievable tournament. The girls did so well, and it was like 2006, I think I kind of got called up off standby to go to Germany and be part of the squad. So nervous. I think I was only 16 then, and sat on the bench and just trying to take it all in.
Were you the youngest in the team?
Pardon?
Were you the youngest in the team?
Yeah, youngest in the team. And then I think I was playing well for Sunderland, and I kept on and I was obviously at getting called up for England youth camps, and I eventually got called up to the proper squad as a main person in the 30-player squad. And I was like, oh my God, like this is like a dream come true. You don't ever expect to play for England at such a young age. And I always remember my debut was against Russia, coming on at right back, and then making my full debut a few days later against Scotland. So it was a bit of a whirlwind, but obviously being the youngest player with the likes of Kelly Smith, Rachel Yankee, all these household names that people were starting to get to know, was just like a dream come true for a 17-year-old.
Yeah. When you did join the squad, was there someone that took you under their wing, for example, that made you feel more, welcome, so to say?
Yeah, I mean, I was really lucky with the squad that we had. I think obviously Faye White was the captain at the time, and she really was the first person to come up and just kind of put an arm around us and be like, if you need anything, I'm always here, just come for a conversation. but just like enjoy it. Really, that was the main thing. And the likes of Kelly Smith, I think she was very quiet, but when she needed to tell you something or she wanted to give you some information or help, she was the master of just doing it at the right time. And for me, I'm forever grateful for them to make us feel welcome, because I know how daunting it is to come into a new environment where you potentially haven't made your mark, and you're someone younger, and people could see you as a threat. But the girls were absolutely unbelievable at kind of just making us settle in and just to play the football I could play.
Mm. What would you say has been your proudest moment in an England jersey? I'm sure there's been a lot of moments, but what would you say if you could pick out one?
God, I'm fortunate enough to have so many unbelievable memories with my country. I think, obviously, the captaincy was a big thing. I think being named captain was huge in terms of not just for me, but for my family. I think you never dream of captaining your country, but when it does come true, you're like, wow, all the sacrifice has been worth it, and it makes you so proud to lead an unbelievable group of girls out. But I think for me, winning the bronze medal in 2015 was special in Canada, mainly because the expectation wasn't high for us then, and the expectation that we had on ourselves was kind of take one game at a time, and just go and give it everything that we can. And the culture of the team and the togetherness was unbelievable. So to win a medal when nobody really expected us to do it, and obviously bouncing back from the semi-final, a defeat against Japan, made it even more special.
Mm. How difficult, and I had Kate Richardson Walsh on the podcast a week or two ago, and obviously, she was talking about the Olympics in 2012 where they lost in the semis and the next day had to play for the bronze medal. And I asked her how difficult it was getting yourself, you're obviously incredibly disappointed that you've missed out on that final place, but now, you've got to like reset your mind for, third place for bronze medal, which is a massive achievement in an Olympics or World Championships. How was it for your team and how did you go about resetting your mindset for that third place?
I think back to it now and I'm like, actually, I don't even know how we did it, because we obviously played the semi-final. Obviously, we lost last minute and everybody was absolutely distraught. I mean, we played so well that game. Like, we controlled the possession. We had all the better chances. It couldn't have been even a perfect game for us. And I think always after a game, you tend to not sleep. But this was even worse. I think all the girls didn't really have that much sleep. I think the manager called us in the morning after and was like, look, girls, no training, no meetings, just get away, go with your families, go and do whatever you need to do just to kind of get yourself back. And I think that day really helped, because you kind of had the time to switch off from football and be a little bit normal, just go out for coffee, go out for some food, get out the hotel and be around your family and friends, or be with the girls just in a different environment. And then for me, it was like, as soon as that day was over, it was like, right, okay, girls, we never thought we had a chance of winning a medal. So we've got an unbelievable opportunity to go and do something special and be the first team to beat Germany, to win a bronze medal. So there was so much more at stake for us. And I think it is always about resetting your mindset and turning it into a positive. And I think the whole group reacted unbelievably. And the biggest thing for me was in that tournament was that we all knew that everybody had a role to play. So it wasn't just the 11 on the pitch. It was always going to be the 23 and the staff. And that game certainly showed it, because we needed everybody. We went into extra time. It was the seventh game for some people, back to back, playing 90 minutes in unbelievable heat on a 3G surface. So everything was stacked against us, but it actually just showed the mentality of the team was just to kind of go, okay, we're going to take this opportunity and grab it with both hands. And we finally did.
Excellent. I'd like to move on to leadership, because obviously you've been the captain for the England team and for Manchester City for some time now. In your opinion, what does it take to be a great leader or captain? What are some of the traits that you would link to that?
For me, in terms of the captains that I've experienced being under and all the leaders, I think definitely a professional element. I think you have to show that you care about your teammates and the staff and the environment that you're in. You have to be a good communicator. I think that's not just between your teammates, but you have to be that link between your teammates and the staff and be able to voice messages. You have to be a winner in my eyes. I think the best captains that I've played under have always tried to win at all costs, and within a team game, that is the ultimate aim, is to win. And to be adaptable, I think that's the biggest learning from me, is that no matter what environment you're in, there's people change, there's different situations that come around, and having that ability to adapt to different people, different personalities, different situations, that is crucial in terms of leadership. So, I think that's a big one for me.
How important is vulnerability in leadership?
Massively. I think for me, I think I've definitely learned that over the last few years from myself. I think you ask so much of others, and for me, you can't always be this strong person all the time or this positive person. I'd like to think that I'm quite a consistent person in terms of my attitude and my mood, but ultimately there's going to be days when maybe I'm feeling a bit low, I'm feeling a little bit tired, and for me, it took us a while to actually go, it's all right to show that. I'm a normal person. I'm the same as my teammate next to us. I'm the same as my staff member next to us, and I think showing that vulnerability puts you in a position of power in terms of it shows the team that you're normal, and it doesn't change how you are with them. It just shows that you're not this person that just puts on a front all the time. It's okay to have them bad days or to react a little bit differently as long as you sort it out after. But ultimately, we're all human, and some things like that happen, and vulnerable moments do happen in sport. There's so many highs and lows that you have to be as consistent as you possibly can. But ultimately, the reality is you can't be like that 100% of the time.
Obviously, trust is a massive thing in a team environment, in a club environment. What would you say are the important elements of building trust within a team? Obviously, vulnerability is a massive one for the leader, because the team's not going to be vulnerable if the leader is not, first of all. But how does one go about building more trust within a team?
I think it's having them connections with people. I think honesty is a massive thing. I think the successful teams that I've been a part of, I think in terms of trusting, you have to be able to provide good information, good communication skills. You have to challenge people as well. I think sometimes people think, oh, a good culture or a good team togetherness is all positive and it's all nicey nice. Well, it's not necessarily like that. I think ultimately the aim of the game is to win and to be successful, and the only way we can do that is providing that balance. And I think if you show, like you said, in terms of being vulnerable might be actually giving people some information that they may necessarily not like, but actually providing information with substance for the benefit of the team. I think with me, I think it's kind of like whatever information you're getting is because you want the team to do well or you want that person to do well. And I think it's that acceptance, and I think the more connections you make within your teammates and the more honest conversations and just that interaction, it does go a long way to build trust, and opening up and being honest with how I feel or how everybody else feels really helps you build that trust in that circle.
So basically what I'm hearing is relationships, connections, honesty, also those hard conversations that need to be had, which are so important as well. Steph, would you say that a leader is born or made?
I had a conversation, I spoke to my husband about this, and I was like, what do you think? And he was like, we've both thought, I think some people are born with a lot of leadership qualities, but I think those that are the best leaders are the ones that take it to the next level and really push them qualities that they already have. And I know that from a personal point of view, I think the leader that I've become today is not just because I was born with all these qualities. I've had to do a lot of work to kind of really focus on what I thought my qualities were and to try and bring it out. And that's getting advice from other people and really working hard every single day to be even better. So I think some natural people, like I would take Steven Gerrard, for example, I think he leads by example, and I think that was what he's always done from a young age. But necessarily maybe his communication or the way that he speaks to people might not have been a natural thing. So I think it's definitely a mixture of the both. It's just how much you want to take them leadership qualities on within your career.
Speaking about Stephen, I've obviously had the privilege of spending some time with Rangers and Michael Beale, etc. And Stephen, he's obviously, his leadership style. He's very quiet. He's not a man of many words, but when he does speak, people listen. For example, and of course his example. I mean, he is the example of leadership. In fact, when I was leaving there, the training ground one evening, there was one guy still left in the gym, and it was him. And it was around about 7 o'clock in the evening, and he was working out by himself. So, they say first in, last out. Well, that really, hit a note with me. But how would you describe your style of leadership? Are you more the vocal type or quiet, a little bit of both?
A little bit of both. I think on the pitch, because of the position that I play, I think I like to think that I speak quite a lot. I try and help the people in front of us or to the side of us, and ultimately try and pass on information that is good quality. And for me being vocal allows me to keep concentrating at the back when we have the ball or when we don't have the ball to kind of help. I think in terms of leading, I think I'd like to lead it. I like to think people think of as someone that leads by example on off the pitch. I think you speak about being the first in the training ground, the last one out. I'm very much like that, and I like to go and get my work done. I like to make sure that I'm prepared properly. I pride myself on my professionalism, like my timekeeping, and ultimately I want to win. I'd like to think that I have a winning mentality no matter what we do in training, whether it's in the rondos that we have, whether we have a five-a-side game, a possession game. And I'd like to think that when I am in and around the girls, that they know that I care, and they know that I'm there for them whenever they need us, or if they don't need us at all, or they want us to speak to someone for them, they know that I'm approachable enough to do that. So if any girls said anything like that about me, I'd be really happy.
Yeah. As a leader, captain, you're not going to please everybody, as you mentioned at the beginning of the conversation as well. I think it was Steve Jobs that said, if you want to make everybody happy, go sell ice cream. So,
true.
What is the most difficult thing about being a captain?
I think for me, probably there's a lot more pressure on you being captain. I think the status comes with ultimately I have to play 9 out of 10 games to get a well done of some sort, from whether that's from media or the opposition. I think that's a pressure that sometimes I probably put too much on myself because I am the captain. And there's a lot more responsibility away from the pitch than probably people realise. I think people just think you wear the armband, you go home, you switch off kind of thing, but it is definitely not like that, especially being captain of both a huge club like Manchester City and also the England team, especially over the last year. And we've been through a lot of change. There's been a lot of conversations. We've had lockdowns. So there's a lot of stuff that goes on behind the scenes, and sometimes I find it really difficult to switch off. I'm not afraid to say that sometimes I go to bed and my head's still buzzing about what I've got to do tomorrow. What should I have said this? Should I have done that? And I think that's the person that I am, and I'm starting to get a little bit better at that, and I'm trying to filter out what I really feel is important to kind of speak about, or to kind of just put it to bed and do it tomorrow. But the pressure is big, but I think ultimately I've just tried to use it as probably more of a motivator to kind of go and prove people wrong. And ultimately, for me, it was all about trying to be a little bit more selfish and not worry about things that I can't really change the here and the now, basically.
It's definitely one of the traits of high performers, and obviously on the Champion Minded podcast, we've had a lot of high performers on here. And it's one of the traits, and they say this, the commonality is they just can't switch off. Still they're in the car, they're in the shower, they're trying to get to sleep, and they're just thinking about the day or the next day and what they need to do and so on and so forth. So that you can relate with that for sure.
Massively. I'm like, what have I got to do? I'm like thinking I've got notes in my phone, I've got like a tick box, like I'm just like, oh my God, there's so much to do. I just want to kind of just go from training, go home, relax. But it's never like that. But to be honest, I'd never change it for the world at the moment. It is what it is, and I enjoy the responsibility.
I'm sure Stephen says sometimes, Steph, would you just shut it down? Would you just switch off?
I think because he's obviously been part of teams where he was captain, and he can kind of relate that a little bit, because he was very much the same personality as me, but he got to the point where he's just like, look, like the adults, they can sort themselves out. They can do stuff. You don't have to do everything for them. And yeah, at the moment he's like, come on, just switch off now. No more football.
Now, you've obviously worked under various managers, as they say there in the UK, and here in the United States we call them coaches. What are some of the best lessons you've learned from, let's think about your England managers, for example, Phil Neville, Mark Sampson, and Hope Powell. Maybe you can mention one or two things from each one.
I think with Hope, because obviously she was my first senior manager at England, I think she always pushed us to be better. I think no matter if I thought I had a good game or a good training session, there was always one thing. She was like, you need to do this a little bit better. And I think that really changed my mindset, because ultimately all I wanted to do was please her. I wanted to be selected for England. And for me, the willingness to be near on perfect, it kind of came from her. I think you were always trying to please and you're always trying to improve as an individual. Mark Sampson, I think, for me, he was the one that gave us the captain's armband, and he really put the trust in us to lead the team. And for me, working underneath him, I think the adaptability was definitely something that came to mind when I think about Mark. His ability to, no matter which opponent, we could always adapt to try and find a way to win, and that was instilled in the group. And I think the importance of team culture and team togetherness was the first time I'd really been a part of a squad where that was probably one of the main focuses. Rather than on the pitch, it was all about how can we be the most together team off the pitch, and how every single individual within a team can play an important role, whether it's a big one or a small one. Everybody plays a part. With Phil, I think for me, the bravery element, I think he really came in, and as footballers and as a footballer himself, who's achieved so much within the game, and he had this unbelievable standard of winning and a winning mentality that we had to be brave in what we wanted to do and trust in the style of play that he wanted us to play. And I think them standards that he set for the rest of the team was one that we all followed, because he's been there, he's done that, he's won so many trophies with some unbelievable clubs, he's played for his country. And I think this is the first time I'd really played under a manager that really valued the connections between the players, and the man management style that he had was so effective. He made everybody feel so part of the team. And for me, if I was to ever go into coaching or managing, that was definitely be a part of the way that I'd like to coach or manage, was to make sure that everybody feels valued and you knew that your manager was there for you no matter what, whether we weren't together as a squad or we're at home as well.
Do you still keep in touch with Phil now that he's moved down the road from me here in Miami?
I know, yeah, he keeps sending us pictures of Miami when we're in really Manchester. So yeah, I speak to him a lot, obviously. He's got an unbelievable opportunity in Miami, and look, I think he's such an unbelievable person that we all wish him the best of luck, and hopefully he can get us out to a few games in the near future.
Yeah, that'd be nice. A few training camps down here in Florida. It's going to be hefty.
Yeah, it'd be nice.
In the winter, though, you know how hot it gets here in summer.
Hey, I wouldn't mind.
Yeah. Moving on to culture. What does a successful team culture look like to you?
For me, a successful team culture is everybody working towards the same goal, and willing to put the team first before anything else. The most successful teams that I've been a part of, or watched documentaries on, that just, for me, that just kind of sums everything up, and create an environment where everybody can feel as though they can be themselves and be comfortable enough to praise people in the good moments, to be able to challenge people in the difficult moments for the benefit of the team, and to get the best out of each other. I think that's ultimately the case. Football is quite simple. You go in, you train, you work hard, but the environment is massive, especially when you spend so much time with each other. You've got to create an environment where everybody's able to fulfill the potential and keep pushing to make the team successful.
Obviously, you've been around the football world for quite a while now, and you've been with various teams. In your opinion, what is what are some of the biggest threats to a winning or successful team culture?
I think the competition element of it is a big threat in terms of we are getting to a stage now in this country, especially in the England national team in this league, where we are bringing a lot more players from abroad, for example, from Man City, to add competition to the squad, and selection for places and starting lineup becomes tough. So how people take that can ultimately affect your culture. I think you can take it in a negative way where you blame everybody else that you're not playing, and it ultimately affects the environment, or you take it in a positive that you're going to use it in a way that you're going to get better in yourself. And I think for me, that is a massive threat in terms of how, when you have a big squad or you have a competitive squad, how people deal with that potential of not playing and being used in a different role.
Mm. Obviously, I want to be respectful of your time here. There's 1,000 questions I'd love to ask you on team culture, obviously.
Yeah.
Let's move on to what's the best advice you could give a young player? Let's just say maybe a young player of 12, 13, 14.
I think for me, the biggest thing that I ever got told was just to work as hard as you possibly can. That is the only ultimate thing that you can control as a person. Nobody can ever take away your work rate and your dedication, but also don't be afraid to ask for help or for advice, and to really take on the information and challenge people. I think ultimately the best players in the world are ones that can challenge, but also when they do challenge, they really accept the information that they've been given to use it to their advantage. So massively, I'm a big believer of working as hard as you possibly can, I think, and having routine and just practicing all the time just to make sure that you're getting better every single day.
Mm. Now, you're obviously still playing at the very highest level, but who would you say has been your toughest opponent, past or present, to face? Maybe, I'm sure there's been more than one, but...
Yeah, I think obviously from the English game would always be Kelly Smith. I think she's going to be our greatest ever player. I think her technical ability and her ability to win matches was, even playing against her in training, she was just so hard to mark. You never knew what she was going to do. Marta from Brazil, I think playing against her as a centre half, she does things that she tries to drag you in spaces where you don't want to go, and you're like, I don't really want to go there, but I'm going to have to. And she's probably got the odd trick or two where she's trying to meg you. And then Celia Sasic from Germany, I think she's retired now, but playing against her in the World Cup, and we played against her at Wembley in 2014. I think she was a different type of striker. She was strong, she was powerful, she could run the channels. So for me, it was a massive learning curve playing against her, and a really tough opponent to play against.
I mean, when you're obviously standing waiting for the whistle to go off and you're looking across the field and you see Marta, an icon like Marta standing there, is there like an extra bit of nerves that come across, or is it something that you've got used to over all the years of playing?
I think the first time you play, and obviously you hear about players and you watch them yourselves and you see them on Instagram doing all these tricks, and then you get to play against the first time. I was like, oh my God, Steph, just don't get megged. Like, just try and get tight, just kick her if you can. But I think as the game's gone on, and I think you have to have a little bit of belief in yourself that like you belong playing against these types of players, and you've got to have that confidence to go, right, okay, well, it's a challenge for me to play against the best strikers in the world, and ultimately my job's to try and keep them quiet. So yeah, definitely the first time I was so nervous playing against her, but ultimately when you're playing in the big games, you kind of just take it as another game and just try and do your best that you can.
Do you spend a lot of time studying video of opponents, of strikers, midfielders, etc. before a game? Is that something you do?
I won't spend a lot of time, maybe just the day before a game. I think obviously we do a lot of analysis on the opposition as a team, but from an individual point of view, I think you do like to know their movements and what they tend to do and how they like to get on the ball, or whether they like to get like a running behind for the ball over the top. So even just knowing that little bit of information, you already, when you're sitting on the pitch, you're already reading in your mind. You're like, right, okay, in this moment she probably wants to go in the channel, or she wants to defeat for somebody else to run in behind. So it kind of just puts that mental picture in your head that this is a potential that's going to happen. But I think it's about finding that balance, about you give them respect, but you don't want to give them too much respect in a way that you're like, okay, I know what you're about, but at the same time, I've got confidence in my own game to kind of go, right, okay, well, I hope you're defending me rather than I'm defending you.
Yeah. Now, obviously, I could spend hours asking you questions here, Steph. So we're going to move on to the final part of the interview, and that's quick fire questions. It's either one word or one line. Are you ready?
Right, okay, let's go.
All right. Favorite food?
Fajitas.
Favorite drink?
Diet Coke.
Favorite city visited? I'm sure you've visited many.
I'm going to say Vancouver, Canada.
Okay. Very expensive too, right?
Yeah.
Favorite music?
I get ripped for my music at football. Probably The Script.
Okay. I don't know them, to be honest, so...
An Irish band, yeah.
Oh, okay. Favorite book?
Apart from yours,
Oh, you just had to say that. Thank you so much.
no, I'm going to say yours. Go on, I'll say yours today.
Thank you very much. Wow, I'm honored. I'm actually
No
blushing
problem.
right now. I'm going red. So, funniest person in your team? It can be Man City or England, or it can be both.
I'm going to go Jill Scott.
Jill Scott. Okay.
Yeah.
Best singer in your team?
I'm going to go Chloe Kelly, actually.
Yeah. Any particular song that she does pretty well?
No, I always just hear her singing by herself in the changing rooms. There's some of the songs that I don't like, but I'm like, you're pretty good. You got a pretty good voice, to be fair.
The neat freak or most organized person in the team?
I'm going to go Georgia Stanway.
That's the neat freak, huh?
Yeah, I wouldn't say she does. Her personality doesn't reflect how neat. That's all. She's quite tidy, to be fair. I'll give her that.
Any superstitions?
Oh God, I have a lot.
Just one.
I have the same pre-match meal
Okay, and that
every
is?
game. Eggs on toast. Yeah.
Favorite sports team, obviously besides Manchester City and England? Can be any sport.
I'm gonna go the England cricket team.
Okay.
Yeah.
Phil was a pretty handy cricketer himself, huh?
Oh, you reckon so? I haven't seen him play though. I've heard rumours about it, but yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Justin Bieber or the Jonas Brothers?
Justin Bieber.
Oh, you didn't hesitate there, did you, huh?
No, I didn't because there's only one song that I always want on the changing room is one of his ones. So I would have to say Justin Bieber.
Awesome. Favorite athlete, male or female, past or present, any sport?
I'm going to have to say David Beckham.
Mm-hmm. And female?
Jessica Ennis.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I've got her book over there. I'm a massive fan of her when she was competing.
She's unreal.
Yeah. One sports event you'd love to attend as a spectator that you haven't obviously attended yet?
I would love to see the Super Bowl. Just because every time I watch it at home, it just looks absolutely unreal.
All right, so definitely you and Kate Walsh Richardson will be attending the next Super Bowl because she answered the same question.
Did she?
Yeah, I was really surprised. You're the first two on the podcast that have said the Super Bowl, so there you go.
Wow. Yeah, I'll take the Super Bowl, yeah.
If you weren't a professional footballer, what would you have liked to have been?
I think I would have liked to have been involved in sports somehow. I really love the strength and conditioning side. I think I did my degree in sports science, so okay. I think I would have definitely done something like that.
Awesome. Book you're reading right now?
This one, actually, I brought it to you. A leadership one.
Ah, Elite. The Secret to Exceptional Leadership and Performance. Oh, good. I'll definitely check that out. I'm always on the search for new books. So awesome.
It's pretty cool, to be honest. Yeah.
Excellent. Nickname?
Steffi. It's not really that interesting. Or Skipper.
Okay. Your pet peeve?
People being late. Can't stand people that are just being late all the time.
Oh boy, I hang my head in shame when I was trying to get this set up, and I'm thinking I'm late, and it's Steph. No, she's time management. I tell you, I've never been so nervous in my life.
No, sorry. To be fair, I like with technology, I accept that because I'm rubbish with it, so that's okay. But if you were late for training, there'd be a word to be had.
Oh, there we go. Describe yourself in 3 words.
Dedicated, ambitious, and caring.
Perfect. Final question, before we also obviously can share your social media platforms where people can follow you. What does it take, in your opinion, to become champion-minded?
A lot of sacrifice, a lot of dedication, and a lot of hard work.
Awesome. Well said. Steph, this has been amazing. Like I said, I could ask you questions for another hour at least. I'm definitely going to get you on in the future again, if you're willing to come on, that is.
Of course.
Awesome. How we've obviously got a lot of followers and fans out there that want to follow you if they're not following you yet. What are the best places?
You can follow me both on Twitter and Instagram, and my handle is @StephHoughton2.
@StephHorton2, and that's on both Instagram and Twitter.
And Twitter, yeah.
Awesome stuff. I'll let you get back to it. Best of luck for your
thank you.
Your second leg game in the Champions League, and of course for the rest of the season.
Thank you. Really nice to meet you. I appreciate it. Thank you.
So there you have it, guys. I hope you enjoyed that one with Steph Horton. Remember, this podcast is available on iTunes, Amazon Podcasts, YouTube, and via my website, allistairmccaw.com. Connect with me on social media. I'm on Twitter @AllistairMcCaw, on Instagram BeChampionMinded, and on Facebook Allistair McCaw page. All books available on Amazon. So remember, you were made for greatness. Now go do the work. Stay champion-minded.